You wrote a great article on Forbes, in the show notes, everybody, on another massive win in the Qualcomm automotive business.
Yeah, so I had a chance to catch up with GM and SVP Nakul Duggal. We've had him on the pod a few times. He runs the automotive business, worked for Cristiano, and he had some big news. A little bit of backstory though. So Qualcomm is best known for its handsets and 5G. 2 years ago, the company really kicked off a business diversification path. It added RF, it added IoT and automotive to the mix. And it's working pretty well so far. In the most recent quarter, 38% of its business was non-handsets. The automotive business is on $1 billion run rate and currently has a $13 billion design win pipeline. It's literally working with every major automaker. So Stellantis, and I'll admit, I cover auto tech, but I had to do a double take. Stellantis is a combination between a merger between Peugeot and Fiat. Okay, this happened in 2021, and essentially consists of 14 brands. Some high volume brands like Dodge and Chrysler, and some real epic brands like Maserati, Alfa Romeo. So, kind of, brands on both sides. And essentially, Stellantis signed up all 14 of its brands to lock in and commit to Qualcomm's digital chassis, specifically the in-car experience and 5G telematics. The first car coming out that supports this will be a Maserati in 2024. And it's interesting, it takes a full 3 to 4 years for a design. And so the companies must have been working on this before. And, in full disclosure, Qualcomm was directly working with PSA and FCA even before the two companies got together. But, if I combine this, Stellantis with GM, with recent BMW, it really, really shows how well Qualcomm's diversification play is taking off. And quite frankly, if you talk to the quote unquote experts a decade ago, Qualcomm really wasn't even in the mix, right? The experts in our industry said it would be some of these classic semiconductor companies that have been there, kind of these slower, lumbering ones that you rarely hear about. But two things happened that I think worked in Qualcomm's favor. First off, the dynamics of the automobile industry are very similar to what the smartphone industry, right? It takes scale. It's leveraged R&D. It really is a systems challenge versus being kind of a point play. And Qualcomm has delivered. They have all that. And in talking with many of Qualcomm's customers and reading their press quotes, I can really boil it down to customers appreciating Qualcomm's open approach, its full stack capabilities, its true partnering for the long term, right? If the customer has a piece of software that they want to slot into the stack, they accommodate that. And finally, they service every range of car, from the lowest end to the highest elite at the very high end, and everything in between, with multiple levels of compute and connectivity. I'll also add, and there was some wording in the press release that talked about supply chain, right? That Qualcomm was agreeing to supply chain assurance for strategic components. And given the chip drought that we've had, particularly with cars, we see automakers desiring a direct relationship with designers, but also a direct relationship with the foundries that produce it.
Yeah, Pat, I mean, it feels like we've kind of had one of these about every 6 weeks for Qualcomm, and every one of them deserves the attention and the conversation. There's a couple of big macro forces at play. I think the first is Qualcomm knows the importance of the market, understanding its dynamics and the shifting dynamics, that it isn't just a chip maker for handsets in the mobile space. As companies like Apple continue to threaten to do more of their own chips, homegrown, Qualcomm knows how important it is that the market appreciates its diversification. We've seen it rise to being, number one in mobile RF front end. We've seen the company grow a multi-billion-dollar IoT business unit. And now it holds a $13+ billion design pipeline in the automotive space. And it's approaching it in a way that is a little bit different than Intel, Mobileye, NVIDIA, taking this sort of digital chassis building block approach that says, we will work in concert with you to help you make iterations to your vehicle fleet in the shorter term using this building block approach. We will also give you a full stack of tools for infotainment, telematics, ADAS with the acquisition of Arriver to give you the full capabilities to build technologically driven vehicles to compete with the likes of Tesla and Lucid and Rivian that are going to be born on cloud vehicles. And that's really going to be the challenge as we move into this world of mobility, is that there are companies that have basically been built from the ground up to take advantage of a fully digital cloud approach for putting together vehicles. And these legacy OEMs have so much technical debt. It's kind of like companies that were started in SaaS companies started in cloud versus companies that have massive on-premise data centers and ERP systems and lifting into the cloud. There's a little bit of the same sort of parallel here going on in the automotive space. Stellantis is another big subset of brands. I mean, we're talking about a company that's won Ferrari, Volvo, Renault, BMW, and GM all in about the last 12 to 18 months. Yeah. So Qualcomm is flexing here. And it's a good flex. This space is pretty early for actual revenue if you look at their books and the numbers on a quarterly basis. But if you look at that design pipeline, this is going to really start to backfill revenue. It secures the company even if some of these things like the Apple fallout ever is to happen. But overall, the TAMs in most of Qualcomm's business areas are growing. So I think it's a pretty encouraging space. And it was a really good win for Qualcomm.